I want to go now into the next stages of this. And with your podcast, the Rising Leader podcast, it's been through a few other evolutions before it got there. So it started as, if I get it right, the Mastering Midlife podcast, then the Mastering Overwhelm podcast, and now the Rising Leader podcast. I want to go back to that Mastering Overwhelm. And that is something that I've seen you write about and talk about a lot. I've heard you talk about overwhelm is something that we bring on ourselves. It's not the outside world. It's something that we bring on ourselves. Tell us more about that.
So what happened is in my 20s, actually in my teens, drugs and alcohol featured really heavily in my life. So much so that, when I went to college, I lasted a couple of weeks. So I didn't get a college education and, when normal people actually go and do that. Instead, I got my PhD in partying. So by the time I was 27, I was homeless and living in my truck and trying to borrow some money from my brother who lived in Washington, D.C. And so I got sober at 27 years old. I was 135 pounds living in my truck. And it wasn't a pretty sight. But I took to sobriety really well, thank God. It's been 33 years. That was 1989. Because it's interesting. I think back now, 10% of alcoholics and drug addicts get sober. So I really feel grateful and blessed that happened. I teach people that generally, when you're overwhelmed, it's because you haven't been able to make difficult choices, saying yes or no to things. But the other thing is the difficult conversations that you need to have in order to say yes or no to things. So instead of having expectations that people are going to do something in a certain way, do you have a specific agreement? Do you have that accountability conversation with people? Can you give feedback to people? Can you delegate? And the big thing that's the real tough thing for most leaders is the accountability feedback loop. Can you have it not be done right? Can you have it be brought back subpar? Then can you coach the person and teach the person to do it better, send them back, rather than do it yourself? So the two pieces that would stop you from doing this accountability feedback loop thing is either the hero complex, you're the only person who can do it and you're the only person who can do it right, or the other is it's just easier to do it yourself because it takes too much time to coach and teach. But if you take time to coach and teach, now you've created another leader, you've created someone else who you can now leverage to get more productivity out of whatever it is you do. You have to really go past your uncomfortability because you have been conditioned, you have trained yourself, you have childhood trauma that tell you how to act around people. So setting boundaries, I don't know who the people pleasers are who are listening. If you're a people pleaser, I was a people pleaser. I was all things to all people, only all the time. Why? Because I could be. I'm energetic, I'm smart, I'm capable, and I was also homeless and I have this self-consciousness about being in the world. So I have to provide value in order to justify my existence. So setting a boundary and saying no to people was like death. I'm not going to be valuable, they're not going to like me, that kind of thing. So I had to be willing to challenge death, to say no, to set a boundary, to say, I'm not going to actually help you with that project. Some other people may have trouble delegating. My people are just so busy. Oh my God, they're just so busy. I can't delegate to them. There's all kinds of internal reasons not to have these conversations, and you have to learn yourself. And the thing that shuts you down from having the sweaty palm, the difficult conversation, you don't want to hurt people's feelings. Right? So you don't want to give them feedback that might sting, like this, you didn't do a good job on this, fix it, right? That back to Kim Scott's radical candor thing again. You have to be able to have these conversations in order to get the work to be where you need them to be in order to develop other leaders. So you have to look internally to see whether setting boundaries, saying no, asking for help, asking for clarification, taking the time to hold people accountable and to make explicit agreements, right? Do you have the courage to give feedback and give feedback well? Those are the things that you have to see. Do you have the internal fortitude for, and then bring it up? Because as Tim Ferriss says, everything you want is on the other side of a difficult conversation. So figure out how to jump off the cliff and say the thing that you're afraid to say.
Hey everyone, it's Mick Spears from the Leadership Project, where we empower leaders with the knowledge and skills that they need to create amazing teams and amazing workspaces. If you're enjoying our content, please do remember to hit like, subscribe, and that little notification bell so that you can be notified of all of our future videos. In the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and join us on this journey as we learn together and lead together.